Very good evening, friends. We all know that the English language, which is the global language today, and most people in the world would like to learn this language or have been using this language or have been learning this language for centuries now. It's because of its ascension from the small reach to the global reach. And we also know that this language came into being because of the interactions of the people speaking certain dialects like the Jutes, the Saxons, and the Angles. And these people had come to the English Isles. They settled there from West Germany. Or these people belong to the West Germanic stock of population. So, in this context, we get to know about the contribution of Geoffrey Chaucer, who is considered as a stalwart of the Middle English literature. And it was he who pioneered uh, collective efforts towards developing English language. It is said that he was much better at the use of French at that time. And using French as the medium of his writing, he could have earned more money. But then, as a nationalist or as a forcier, he decided to write mostly in English because he loved English and he wanted this language to develop. And during that period, French was already developed and English was trying to develop. So, Middle English period is extremely important in the history of the process of the evolution of English language that it is today. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote literature and he made use of the words that had been used in the vernacular. Most of the other cultured people of that time, they made use of French. Means they wrote in English, but they wrote also in the code switching way of writing. Means they quoted profusely from the Latin, from the French in order to enrich English. But Geoffrey Chaucer, when he had to quote in his writings French and Latin sayings or observations, he made use of the characters having the background in these languages. So a big contribution of Geoffrey Chaucer in the development of the English language. Now, we also know that the first English text in the Old English, before the Middle English is the Old English, Anglo-Saxon English, we call that as a students of the history of English literature. Beowulf was the first, you can say, work in Old English, and that work is anonymous, and that work is almost impossible for anyone to read from our times, because unless some of us are we are trained in the reading of the Old English text. When it was the time of the 16th century, there was one headmaster of a school, of a very good school in London. His name was Richard Mulcaster, and he had rather not been all right with this reality that English was the tongue of a small population having settled in the English Isles. And he realized at that time that English was a humble language, humble in the sense that it didn't have widespread, it didn't have speakers in many parts of Europe. It was confined to the English Isles only. Perhaps he might have had in mind developed languages like French and Latin at that period of time. So our discussion has to be focused on different domains of the use of English. Obviously, when we have different domains, then that is the indication of the diversification of life, different pursuits of life. When suppose life was agricultural, people 80% to 90% were peasant, and people didn't have to go to labs, people didn't have to go to universities, means things that had not been developed. Then the peasants, 80% of the peasants uh, of the population of a society, English society, and they spoke English that was suited to their occupation, peasantry, farming, and all that. But as the world advanced, Europe advanced, England advanced, that we had agricultural revolution in the 18th century. Before that, we had diversification of life. People had started traveling to places, religious travel and travelings, then navigational travelings, anthropological and other, you can say, travels and tours for the purpose of explorations. Then people find out to different places and they carried with them the language, and then they interacted with the people outside the English Isles. And that was also one of the processes or one of the ways in which English language is spread out. But after the agricultural revolution in England in the 18th century and industrial revolution in England in the 19th century, it was but natural for the English people, English rich farmers, agricultural scientists, industrial, you can say what you call workers, industrial scientists or industrial engineers, and they had to go to other parts of the world. Uh, First of all, in Europe, to different countries of Europe to help them or to have this show also that they were superior to the other, you can say, countries' engineers, because they had the advanced knowledge of how to better agriculture, how to better industry sectors, and all that. So English started getting to different uses. And as the time passed in the 19th century, in the 20th century, we have seen that towards the end of the 19th century, industrialization had matured up. And then in the 20th century, automation started, industries started getting heavier, small scale industries started getting merged. And in those places, big industrial establishments were, you can say, had. And so more and more people came to settle in the industrial areas, in the urban areas of England and of other countries of Europe. And they started making use of English language principally because English was by then, the language of the empire, English empire. And we also know that towards the end of the 19th century, and you can say in the first 3 decades of the 20th century, English empire had enlarged to the extent that people started saying that English empire doesn't have sunset, because you have America was also until 1776 under the British Empire up to the mid 18th century. And then after America became independent and free from the British rule or British yoke, even then, many parts of the world, particularly from Asia and Africa, and mainly in the Indian subcontinent itself. Indian subcontinent, even now, is you can say almost half or 40% of the total area of Asia. And India remained under the British rule until 1947. And Indian subcontinent, India at that time meant the present day India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, all these places. So what I mean to say that by the arrival of the 20th century, English language became the language of the world. So from a small reach to global reach. And this is the, you can say, reality of the spread of English. Means within 300 to 350 years, English became the world language. So naturally, it started being used for different purposes in different domains, like engineering, like medicine, like industries, like politics, like sculpture, like history, like you can say legal fields, literature. literature should be the oldest domain of the use of English, because it started being used as a medium of creation in England, and people who had been cultured and who had literary ambitions, they also started writing in English. So the use of English in literature started much earlier than the use of English for medical experimentation, or for engineering, suppose sciences, and other such related fields and all, because English had to be the language of literature, because literature and life so intimate. Anything, even if you don't write, because oral literature you don't have written literature. So whatever you think, whatever you suppose compose in your mind, some lines in rhymes or in rhythm, and you speak out and to people, or you speak out to yourself. So that also becomes part of literature, because literature is all about expression, oral or written, of the feelings and thoughts and opinions and views and responses to things that happen. So feelings, your feelings when the sky gets clouded, after suppose scorching heat that you have suffered from, suddenly you have the cool breeze, the sky gets clouded, the birds start flying, and you have a different scenario. So you feel joy, you feel a change, suppose in the atmosphere. The scorching rays are no more, because the sky is overcast and you have cool breeze now, which was not then, means 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, at any point of time. So people might have thought of saying something, and people might not have found people around them, other people around them to say. So, even monologue, you speak to yourself, you speak loud, or you speak in your mind. And whatever you speak, you express for yourself or for others to hear, when the fact is that others are not around you to hear, even that can be considered literature. And literature is also supposed to be the mirror of human imagination, human aspirations, human apprehensions, human fears, all sorts of things. You relate yourself, human beings relate themselves with the makers, you call them the divine beings. Humans relate themselves to other aspects of nature, to other creatures. Sometimes a human being compares himself with an elephant in certain attributes, in certain terms, that an elephant, suppose, is very slow and steady in its movement, and you can say, it moves majestically. So people who have resources, people who have stability of mind, and when they move, you call them that these people are calm and quiet, and they have nothing to worry about, and they are satisfied with themselves, and they have the feeling of dignity that they are good, and they are a nice, you can say, creatures made by God. Then like that, sometimes you compare yourself with what you call ants also, that I have been working as ants, silently, slowly, but steadily, collecting food not only for ourselves, for others. So in that sense, literature is all about man's, you can say, thinking, simple thinking or complex thinking, man's, you can say, aspirations, ordinary aspirations, or you can say big aspirations, man's fantasy, man's imagination, man's dreams. Literature, some certain literature is called dreamy literature, certain literature is called realistic literature, certain literature is called adventurous literature, because you have the characters who are adventurous, and they move out and they risk their lives for, you can say, making records or doing something that had not been done earlier. Now, to come, you can say, back to that, different domains of English. So what are the most important domains of English these days? We call literature is the most basic, is the most foundational, and then you have, suppose, engineering field, engineering field of activity, medical field of activity, industrial field of activity, you have legal field of activity, you have international trade and commerce, you have diplomacy, you have, suppose, you can say, entertainment, So English that is used in medicine or medical world or medical sciences, in the field of medical sciences where researches are made by great medical scientists, doctors are involved, then there you have English. And you see that in the medical sector, many words, many items of vocabulary have been borrowed from Latin and Greek sources. Even the names of the medicines mostly are derived from Latin and Greek sources. English vocabulary is also there, but mostly Latin and Greek, because when medicine started to develop, English was developing, but scientists had to depend on more stable, more recognizable terms of language, so they might have gone into Latin and Greek. Now, we have medical dictionary. Means a medical dictionary is generally not used by uh, commonly educated people. People having been educated in humanities, social sciences, or you can say general physics, general chemistry, political science, history, sociology, psychology. So English is used very importantly, very significantly in the field of medical sciences. So we have dictionary of medicine, dictionary of medical sciences, and it is in the English language, but it is of a different domain. It is of a different, suppose, field of activity. So it is for the specialists. If a person very nicely educated, roundly educated, so you may have some words or more words from the English dictionary related to the medical sciences, but you don't have as much access, or you don't have such a grip on the English vocabulary of the medical sciences as medical scientists have, doctors have. In the same way, you have, suppose, English used in the courts of law, English used in, you can say, the books of laws, and there you have, you can say, 30% of the terms, linguistic terms, they are specific. Means they are especially used in the legal areas, in the courts of law, in the practice of laws, when arbitration has to be done at the level of, you can say, judiciaries and all that. So, medical field, and then you have this legal field. You have engineering field. You have heavy engineering. You have, suppose, you can say, light engineering. You have electronics. See the computer. We are living in the age of computer. We have different kinds of gadgets. We are living in the age of internet. So these days, you see, life has changed such a lot. People had, you can say, much leisure earlier, and people would be out in the fields, in the gardens, in the parks, just to have socialization. They would spend some time. They would have some good time talking together. But these days, see, it may be good, it may be bad. It depends on people. You have different points of view, different arguments, different logics are given. But sometimes one feels that human beings at present have been diseased. They are so much obsessed with electronic gadgets, mobile phones. So one person has five mobile phones of different brands, and he is proud of five mobile phones, having five mobile phones. And every time either he sleeps or when he eats, even at the time of eating, he is engaged with a mobile phone. So you have the language, and Jonathan Swift, one of the writers, he was so very sad at, you can say, abuse and misuse of the English language. And he wrote an essay on this, you can say, malpractice of the abuse of English in the 18th century. And the title was this, The Misuse of English. And he gave examples of how long words of English are truncated and abbreviations are made. So a word like fundamental is called funda. A word like representative is reduced to rep and all that. So he lamented that if the trend continued and it didn't get restricted, it was not checked, then there would be problems in the graves of the great men. Even Shakespeare, one of the greatest users of the English language, would turn discomfortably in his grave, you can say, thinking of what is happening to the English language at the hands of so-called educated people, fashionable people. And when it comes to, if you have an email from a person these days, then you read the email on the screen of your laptop computer and you see how YOU becomes you. So people, not only that, R becomes R, ARER, don't know, you are. So you write you and R. And our children, they get used to that. They forget the spelling of the word you. They forget the spelling of the word are. Even if they don't forget, they practice that. And when they make writing, suppose in that style, then it is not recognizable. It is not English. It's an abuse of English, and it's a sad reflection on our, you can say, sense of what you call liberalization in everything. To be liberal is all right, but to go beyond limits, that is very dangerous. So my focus is on the different domains of English. So English is used in medical sciences, in legal sciences or legal field. English is used in engineering. English is used in diplomacy. So in diplomacy, you have masters, you have foreign secretaries, you have people who travel around the world and see the irony that the more they do the diplomacy, the more complicated relations, you can say, happen between nations or among nations. And so things have come to formalities. You shouldn't be cheating. You shouldn't be using language or making use of the language in such a clever style that when you speak, then you are taken literally, or you are taken as a sincere person. You really want to do something that you speak about doing like. But later on, exposure takes place. You get exposed. So modern diplomacy and the diplomacy, suppose you can say, of the 18th century, 17th century, means people have been clever, people have been cheating, deceptive in their use of language. It is also said that language is a help to any speaker that you make use of. Any language that you use, you speak, you write. So it's a help, it's a means. It helps you live normally. It helps you have relations with others. It helps you have a feeling of community. But language also is abused and misused, and it is used to cheat, to deceive on others. You are not hungry, but when the mother of your friend asks you, "Are you hungry?" If you are, then please eat something. You say, "No, absolutely not. I am not hungry. I had something. I had my lunch only half an hour ago before I reached here." So, language, if it is used sincerely and if it is used with a sense of decency, it will always develop and all that. So, in many fields, we have English language at use. We have sometimes it is also called ESP. So, English, and for specific purposes means English used in the engineering field is different. English, suppose used by politicians, political scientists, historians, psychologists. So you have terms in psychology, and these terms are alien to the medical scientists. And most of the terms used in the medical sciences are, you can say, French to the English users and speakers in other fields. You have again culture and all that. So you see songs are made, entertainment activities are done. You have suppose you can say some sort of, you can say, use of English in making cartoons and all skits and all that. So the reality is English language is one, and in the standard form of this, it is supposed to be educated English. Means whoever is nicely educated will understand a doctor speaking, a lawyer speaking, or writing. When a doctor writes for the use of the general people, not for the specialist doctors, then his writing has to be in general English. That's why general English, educated English. But when a doctor writes something about his research to another doctor, a medical scientist writes something to another medical scientist about the progress he has made as a researcher, then he is free to make use of the words, special English words, Latinized, or you can say having a reference to Greek suppose, language and all that. he's free because that is his field. But when doctors and engineers and lawyers and politicians, historians, psychologists, anthropologists, means specialists of different fields of activities, when they come together to have suppose you can say to have get together or to have give and take, to have exchanges of ideas and opinions and feelings and all that, then they use the common core of English, and that is what is called standard English. So, and standard English also is a variety of English, and it is used, you can say, in the context of the people who are from different backgrounds but who are educated. Means they know something of different things, but they don't know as much, you can say, on a field of activity which is a specific field of activity. For example, a politician won't understand doctors speaking among themselves, and that would be their, you can say, jargon, doctor's jargon, medical jargon, legal jargon. So jargons are used in the specified fields, and common core English is used, you can say, among the people who are educated and all. Suppose an Australian farmer, when he talks with other farmers of Australia or other countries of the world, then farmers even from other countries of the world would understand the written expression of the Australian farmer in English or the spoken expression of that Australian farmer in English. But it might be difficult for, you can say, a doctor from Australia or you can say from other parts of the world to understand very nicely, you can say, the written or spoken expression of an Australian farmer. So, what I wanted to share with my listeners is this, that English is a global language and it has varieties. It has different sources from where it has taken words, it has taken phrases, it has taken, suppose you can say, quotations, and therefore it is the world language. There is hardly any language as such from which you don't have a few words in the English dictionary, English encyclopedia, because English naturally has been the language of the world, also in the sense that English people have ruled all over the world. That's why no English empire doesn't know sunset. If the sun sets in one part of the world, as it does, so one part of the earth is dark during the night, and the other part of the world is sunny during the day. But English empire, there was a time when its colonies everywhere. So that also is a reason that English language has taken words and linguistic items from different sources, different languages. So people sometimes they are very happy. For example, some people of China, and they are, you can say, very proud of some Chinese words being used in English. Russians, they also are they also point to the Russian words, Russian linguistic items that are used in English. So many words are from India. Many words are, means the larger the population of society, and you'll find larger number of words assimilated into English. But that is the beauty of English. You open yourself to other, you can say, minorities, in the sense of languages. Means, suppose a language is major, a language is, you can say, what you call in majority because majority speakers, and the language is minority or minor because its speakers are limited in number. So English language is everybody's language. Unlike what Richard Mulcaster had said in the 16th century, that English is our tongue. So and at that period, if people spoke English, then they were Englishmen. But these days, whoever speaks English, you can say, definitely is not English, because Russians speak English. Russians, suppose educated people, they speak in Russians with people who know Russians, with their countrymen, or with those people who have learned Russian. But when a Russian goes to China, perhaps he prefers to speak in English if he knows with the people, a gathering of 100 people, 50 people, and all that. So English, the global language, and therefore it has more varieties. It has more dialects also. And the two most important, you can say, what we call varieties of English used all over the world. educated people wish to learn, or educational institutions, you can say, model their medium, either American or British. If the countries, societies are in the vicinity of America, North America, then you find it that American spellings, although there are not many differences, but American spellings. Even now, I was typing the word endeavour on this laptop, Endeavour. That is British spelling, and because we have read more of British literature as students of English literature than American literature. American literature started getting introduced in educational, you can say what you call setups in the late 19th century or something like that. But English literature has been part and parcel of the course of English literature right from the beginning. So Endeavour, not Vour. That is American spelling. Sometimes you write CENTRE, and then that is underlined, red underlined, that is wrong. CENTRE is the British spelling, CENTER American spelling. So sometimes we see that if it is for the American, you can say people, then we have to stick to that. But either this or that, stick to American spelling or British spelling. Perhaps that is better instead of, you can say what you call, mixing up the two styles, American styles of spelling words, or in terms of pronunciation also, hover and hour and all that, white and white and all. So, English language has different domains, and the most important domains are these: medical sciences, engineering sciences, legal sciences. You have, you can say, agricultural sciences, farming. You have diplomacy. You have international trade. You have air traffic, international air traffic. You see, pilots of Russia, they have to have certain, you can see what you call, certain competence in the use of English codes and all that while flying, even at the airports and all. So international air traffic, international trade and commerce, diplomacy, English has, you can say, a very strong presence. And therefore, we as, suppose you can say, educated people, and we as going to be educated people, aspiring education, we have to understand that English, one language, is not used uniformly in different fields. We have a vast difference between the vocabularies of the medical sciences and the, you can say, engineering sciences, the technical and the non-technical. And that is why we have ESP. So students of engineering, when they have to study something in English about their courses, then their English is English for specific purposes. Students of humanities, they have a different sort of syllabus for their, you can say, joys of reading or for the entertainment and all. So if you happen to meet a person who speaks in English you don't understand, then don't go mad, or don't feel irritated. You just sense, or you just get to know what sort of background that person has who is speaking English, but you don't understand. Perhaps he is from the background with which you don't have any relationship and you don't understand. But if you are really educated, then even if you don't understand 100% of a medical doctor speaking to another medical doctor, you understand something. But if you are, suppose, C4 in the use of English, they're spoken or written, then it is natural that you don't know anything. It becomes unintelligible to you. So I wanted to mm, elaborate this idea that English language is one, but it is put to different various uses. And sometimes uses are in, so you can say what you call, diametrically different areas, that English used in one area is 80%, 90% unintelligible to other people who don't have reference to this area. So it is for our convenience, it is for our success, it is for our pleasure that we understand the context, we understand the situation, and according to our tastes and interests, we go to places, or we, suppose you can say, we meet friends or make friends, and then we make even suggestions. If you want a doctor to, suppose, speak like lawyer, then that will not be your good liking. A doctor can speak like a doctor. He can use English as a doctor uses. But when, as a doctor, he uses English, then he switches over. He doesn't speak in the medical jargon. So and this is very important to understand that when you are speaking or you are writing to people of your own field, then you are free because other people know what you want to say, what you want to tell them. But if you are speaking to people of different backgrounds, then it is better to make use of the common code English. That way, you are understood, you are liked, you are appreciated. So that's all. Thanks a lot. God bless us all. Bye bye.